Shalom everyone and welcome to Mount Tsiun, blessed in English, Baruch in Hebrew, which means increase, fruitfulness and multiplication. My name is Abigail. We continue with the series entitled Hasatan, the adversary, or the imposter. He is also an imposter. And in this particular teaching, we'll be looking at what are the ways in which Hasatan challenges Yahuah. How is he challenging Aluah? And exactly who must be worshipped? Because remember, when we're looking at the definition of an impostor, it talks about a counterfeit, something that is made or that is making itself in the exact image or pretending to be in the exact image of something that is valuable with the intention to deceive or to defraud. So Hasatan, there are ways that he presents himself as an imposter, or he masquerades himself as Aluah, and people think that they are worshipping Aluah. A lot of people think that they are serving Aluah. Meanwhile, it is just Hasatan masquerading himself as Aluah. A lot of people think that they are genuinely serving, genuinely worshipping Aluah and Yahuah. Meanwhile, Hasatan is masquerading, and they are not aware. It is through, remember the term, deception. Deception is very dangerous because it really looks legit. It's an exact imitation of that which is genuine. So with today's teaching, I've put together a table, and we are currently working on finalizing Mount Tsiun's website. Once the website is up and running, all the teachings that I've had, all the notes that I've been referring to, we're going to put them on the website that we can be able to follow through in it, because it becomes difficult to put them on the different platforms in which Mount Tsiun is broadcasting through, whether YouTube or TikTok, or Facebook, or what is this, Instagram, or Rumble. But picture this, let's just use our imagination. Picture a table that has two columns. In one column, on the right hand side of the column, it has what is legit, what is genuine, what is of Yahuah. And on the left column, or the second column, is what is masquerading, it's what is deceiving, what is the enemy, the adversary. Hasatan is making us think something which is actually not. So let's start on the right hand side, which is that which is of Yahuah. Firstly, we're going to be looking at, it's very critical that there is only one Aluah. This is very, very, very critical. There is only one Most High. I even made an example of this to my son, and I said to him, listen, if you think about just general English, you have good, you have better, you have best. So the best is the ultimate. Now, the Most High is, there cannot be two Most High, because it's Most High. He's one, all right? So the Almighty is one. The Aluah is one. And we find this in the book of Dabarym, or Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4. It says, "Hear, O Yasharal, Yahuah our Aluah is one. Hear, O Yasharal." Why did Yahuah had to warn us of this? Because he knew that we're going to be going into the land, as we're entering the promised land, Canaan, where the inhabitants of that land were worshipping many mighty ones, or many gods. And he had to tell us, he had to reveal to us that, remember, Yahuah, your Aluah, is one. And he also warns us in the book of Shamut, or Exodus chapter 20, we know this as the 10 Commandments. And it is the 10 Commandments that Yahuah himself wrote with his own finger on the stone, on the tablets of stone, which he then gave to Moshe to give to Yasharal. And he gave us this commandment. Shamut, or Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 to 2. The first one, it says, and Aluah spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahuah your Aluah, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery. You have no other mighty ones against my face. Have no other mighty ones against my face. I alone, I am Aluah. Yahuah, which has been changed to John, chapter 17, from verse 1 to verse 4. We see Yahuah, or John chapter 17, this is the prayer of Yahusha that he made, the last prayer. And he was making this prayer for those that believed in him, not only those that were with him at the time, but even those that were going to believe in him through the emissaries, through his disciples, through the message that will be proclaimed later. And then Yahusha then prays, and he says, we read from verse 1 to verse 4. Yahusha said these words and lifted his eyes to the Shamayim and said, Father, the hour has come. Esteem your son, so that your son also might esteem you, as you have given him authority over all flesh, that he shall give everlasting life to all whom you have given him. Verse 3. This is the everlasting life. What is the everlasting life? When somebody says this is the truth, you better awake even if you're feeling sleepy. Yahusha says this is the everlasting life. What is the everlasting life? That they should know you, Father. That they should know you, Aleph Beit. That they should know you, Father, the only true Aluah. Yahusha himself is saying that Yahuah is the only true Aluah, the only true Most High, the only true God, the only, not many, one Aluah. This is the everlasting life, that they should know you, the only true Aluah, and Yahushua HaMashiach, whom you have sent. So the everlasting life is to know the Father. His name is Yahuah. He is the only Aluah. And also the everlasting life is to know Yahushua, the anointed one, Yahushua HaMashiach, whom you have sent. Yahushua introduces himself as the anointed one. He says, Yahushua HaMashiach. He speaks of himself as Yahushua HaMashiach. And whom you have sent. Yahushua is the son of Aluah. He is the son of Aluah. We have one Aluah. He is the Father, who is Ruach, who is Spirit, and he has a son. He's one. Let me not go ahead of myself. Let's continue. Now, where do we, let's continue. Again, we're still on the right-hand side, which is what Yahuah says. Okay. Parashith, or Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, it reads, and Aluah created the man in his essence. Highlight this. Aluah, remember, Aluah is one. He created the man in his essence, or essence. It doesn't say in their essence. There is no plural here. There is singular. He created man in his essence. If there was God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, he would have said in our essence. But the true translation, the correct translation here is, it is in his, because he is the one creator, one creator, one Aluah, one most high, one almighty, one mighty one. In the essence of Aluah, he created him, male and female, he created them. We also see it talks about he created male and female. He created them, plural, man and woman. He created them, singular, he. So please note this right hand side of the column. Another, while still on the right hand side of the column, let us read the book of Yasharal, or the book of Proverbs chapter 8. Proverbs chapter 8 verse 22 to 23, and it says, we spoke about this previously when I was saying that Yahuah is not Aluah, or Yahuah is not God, or is not a creator. He declares that, and in the book of Proverbs chapter 8 from verse 22 to verse 30, he is impersonated. Yahuah is spoken in the character of wisdom, or reflective, or is reflected as wisdom. And it reads, Yahuah possessed me, the beginning of his ways. So Yahuah is admitting that he was possessed, he is possessed by Yahuah, and that he is the beginning of Yahuah's ways, or Yahuah's works, or Yahuah's creation, as the first of his works of old. It actually says that, as the first of his works of old. So before day one, because when we read the scriptures, we only get the scriptures on day one of creation, where he created 7 works, or where he made 7 works, or created 7 works, which we've spoken about them. Let me just see if I'm gonna quickly remember the 7 works that were created on day one. It was the Shamayim, or the heavens, the Arets, or the earth, the abysses, or the pit, or the deep. It was the darkness. It was the light. It was the Ruach, or the angels, the Malak, or the Ruach, or the spirits. They were also created on day one. I've forgotten the 7th. The Mayim, that's right. Then the waters were also created on day one. But this Proverbs, this book, Proverbs chapter 8, is giving us insight before this creation that was made on day one, before this creation that the 7 creation that I've just made listed that were created on day one, and that Yahuah possessed Yahuah, the beginning of his way. He says he is the first of his works of old. Verse 23, Yahuah says, I was set up ages ago, at the first, before the Arets ever was, or the earth ever was, when there were no depths, which is the deep I spoke about, the abysses, he was there. And before the Arets was, he was set forth. I was brought forth, he says. Yahuah says, I was brought forth when there were no springs, heavy with water, before mountains were sunk, before the hills I was brought forth, before Yahuah had made the Arets and the field, or the first dust of the world, when he prepared the Shamayim, or the heavens, I was there. When he decreed a boundary on the face of the deep, when he, watch this language, when he, singular, he who, Yahuah, he who, Aluah, he who, the creator. And Yahuah is relating, is narrating the story to us. He's giving us insight into what happened before we were created, before even the creation that Yahuah created in the first 6 days before we were created in the first 5 days. What was going on? Verse 29, Proverbs 8 verse 29, when he gave to the sea its limits so that the Mayim or the waters would not transgress his command, when he decreed the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him. I was beside him. I was not creating with him. I was watching him doing his work. And if it even says, and Adon workman, the master workman, the master creator, the master workman, Yahuah is. And Yahusha is observing this through and through. He says, I was his delight day by day, rejoicing before him in all the time. Rejoicing before him in all the time. I was his delight. We have now gone through what is on the right hand side of the table that I spoke about of the column. Let's now compare this with the deception that Chasatan brings forth. Now, if we read the book of Genesis from verse 26 to verse 27 from the New King James, and most of the versions, I think most of the King James, they have this verse 26 incorrectly. And it reads, then God said, let us make men in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created. So this is verse 26. Now this is the confusion that we then see of the translators. Why am I talking about the translators? Remember, these are the very same translators who removed totally the name of Yahuah and replaced it with a title, or what they told us that it was a title, Lord and God. These are the very same translators who who changed the name of Yahusha, translated it to Jesus, which I said, you don't translate names, but they changed his name from Yahusha to Jesus. These are the very same people that changed the names of the people of Yahuah, that changed the names from Jacob to James, from Yahukanon to John, from Shimon to Peter, from Shaul to Paul, from Yehuda to Jude, from Yehuda to Judas. The same translators also, whether it was intentional or unintentional, I do not know. But here is the truth. It is not a true translation that Yahuah said, let us. Because then this now replaced to plural. In our image. He never said in our image. And we have seen this in the book of, he cannot conflict himself. He just told us in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4 that he is one. Yahuah the Aluah is one. He just told us in Exodus chapter 20 verse 1 to 2 on the 10 commandments that we must have no other mighty ones, no other Aluah against him. Yahusha has just told us in the book of Yahukanon, which is changed to John chapter 17, that this is everlasting life, that you should know the only true Aluah. And we just read also from Proverbs chapter 8 from verse 22 to verse 30 that he made the Arets, he made the Shamayim, he set the clouds, he, all about he. It's not plural, it's not us, it's not, Yahusha didn't say we did this. He says he alone, Yahuah. So this verse 26 is mistranslated, it is incorrect. It was actually introducing the whole theory of Trinity there and there. And even if you read the same narration which I spoke about when we were talking about the teaching under the series of the 6th day of creation, where I compared the narration of the 6th day of creation from the book of Yobal or Jubilee to the book of Bereshith or Genesis. In all the book of Yobal or Jubilees, it talks about he alone. There is no plural in it, it's singular. But when we read this other translation, we see the error that is saying us. Excuse me. And you can see that this is really an error, because just on the same chapter, verse 26, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, it says, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. It talks about plural. But the next verse, so verse 27 then says, so God created man in his own image. Now already we can already see that they probably made an error in verse 26, and now verse 27 they are correcting it and say that so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. So the verse 26 says plural, 27 says singular. And I'm saying to you as you are listening to this teaching, the word tells us that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established. So we have seen in the book of Dabarym, the book of or Deuteronomy, the book of Exodus, the book of John, the book of other verses, even in the same chapter of Genesis, the book of Proverbs 28, that it refers to one Aluah. So let's correct this. There are so many other versions that already has corrected verse 26. It is not in our image. It didn't say let us. It's not our likeness. Yahuah created us in his likeness. In his image, he created us. All right. Here's another confusion. Why am I emphasizing the confusion? Because we grew up in Christianity where we were told that we need to take everything that is written in the Bible, as we even call it, the gospel truth. But we were not told that Yahuah himself did not write these scriptures. Neither did Moshe write the scriptures. Or even Moshe wrote them as he wrote the Torah, but there was then translation that took place. And then when people are translating, they're translating it according to their understanding and also according to their beliefs or their standpoint. That's why we always talk about that. You will always know history from the writers of that history, or other people say from the victor's point of view, because they will write according to their perspective, according to their bias. So in this particular case, when you read the word, that's why we need the Ruach of Yahuah. We need the Spirit of Yahuah to enlighten us to the point where there was a deception. Because remember here, this whole series is about Hasatan, the adversary, who is an imposter, who is a deceiver, who is the one that makes counterfeit of that which is genuine, of that which is Yahuah. And he doesn't come just blatantly as Hasatan to us, because he knows that we'll just reject him utterly or upfront. But he comes, that's why we spoke about, he comes as a masquerading as a messenger of light, as an angel of light, masquerading as bringing the truth. But there is something offish about it. There's something wrong about it, where we then start to pick up the conflicts. The reason why he wants us to get us so occupied and distracted in the system, in this world system, that we don't even have the time to scrutinize the word of Yahuah. Just the 2 verses, verse 26 of Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and verse 27 totally conflict each other. And we now know which part is wrong. Verse 26 is wrong because 27 agrees with so many other parts of the word of Yahuah. The other part that brings about confusion to many people is the book of Yahuah. Again, as I said, it was changed to John. John chapter 1, verse 1 to 2 and verse 14. I'm reading from the New King James. Again, I'm referring to these versions that mislead people. And I'm not saying that totally throw the whole Bible. You need it, but you need the spirit of Yahuah to guide you, to enlighten you as you're reading the. Be cognizant. Know from at the back of your mind that the people that translated these scriptures were human beings who are fallible, who are subject to being biased and deceived, whether they were deceived or they intentionally did this. But we see Hasatan, the adversary's deception, in some of these versions, in some of the words that have been in these versions. Okay, now this reads the book of John chapter 1 verse 1 to 2 and verse 14 from the New King James. It reads, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Now this is the confusion again. This verse says the Word was God. We've just read all the other scriptures that there is one Aluah. But this verse now tells us that the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Now how confusing. Explain this thing to, let's assume that you did not grow up in a Christian family. You just meet someone from the forest, literally, who has no access to Christianity, has no access to the Bible, no access to the Word. And you tell this person that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. He was in the beginning with God, but he is God, but he was with God. What are you saying? It's confusion. And remember, Yahuah is not the author of confusion. Who is the author of confusion? Hasatan is the author of confusion. Wherever there is an element of confusion, know who is involved. Hasatan, the author of confusion. It says, he was in the beginning with God. So which is which? Is he God? Was he with God? Was he in the beginning with God? And when we read Proverbs chapter 8, Yahusha said, I was with Aluah in the beginning. I was with him. But I'm not him, but I was with him. This is the confusion that we see in the book of John, when then it says that he is the Word. Continuing. And the Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us, and we beheld his esteem, the esteem as of the only begotten of the Father. Now, if he is the only begotten of the Father, how can he then be God? How can he be then if he is the begotten of the Father? If, as we read in Proverbs chapter 8, it says he was brought forth. How can he be God? Which is which? It's confusion. When you're confusing something that was very simple, and Yahushua told us in very simple terms in Yahuah or John chapter 17, he says, this is the everlasting life, that you should know the Father, that they should know, as he's praying, he said that they should know you, the only true Aluah. Yahushua told us that the only true Aluah is the Father. And he says, and that you should know Yahushua HaMashiach, whom he sent, whom Yahuah sent. I am not God. I was sent by God. I am not Aluah. I was sent by Aluah. This is the confusion that confuses a lot of people. And we've seen how it is possible through how the names were changed. Not only the names of the people were changed, but even the names of the regions, the land, the rivers, the names of the rivers were changed. There was a big, what is the word? It's a big plan, strategy to systematically erase that which is of Yahuah. A big plot that Hasatan took years to do it, and he's still continuing to do it. And then people are now confused as to who are they worshiping, because they say it's the same person. That's why even when they pray, they now, instead of praying to the Father, they pray to the Son, because they don't know that you pray to the Father in the name of the Son. We pray to Yahuah in the name of Yahusha. We pray to the Father in the name of the Son. Look at so many songs. There's so much about Jesus, very little about the Father. It's the same deception that the enemy made. And another place also where we see, when we read John chapter 3 verse 16, it tells us, John 3 verse 16 says, "For God so loved the world," and this I'm reading from the New King James Version, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten or brought forth Son, that whosoever believes in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life." So in the very same book of John, John chapter 1 brought forth a confusion where it says that the Word was with God and the Word was God. 2 chapters down the line, which is now chapter 3, it talks about that for God so loved the world alone, like He gave, as in singular, not plural. It's only, it tells us, John 3, that He is the brought forth Son, begotten Son of Yahuah. And even the same book of John, chapter 17, so in the same book, we see one confusion in chapter 1 verse 1, but then we see in chapter 3 the correction, we see in chapter 17 the correction, that Yahuah the Aluah, or the Most High, or the Almighty One, is one. If you read Isaiah or Yasharal chapter 9 verse 6, it says, "For unto us a child," because these are the scriptures that people are bringing forth to justify or to argue that Jesus or Yahusha is God. They say, "Oh no, read John chapter 1 verse 1, it says that in the beginning was the Word and the Word was with God." But we've seen so many other verses that are not in line with this mistranslation or misinterpretation. Some people also quote Yasharal or Isaiah chapter 9, and its way it reads, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And then they say, look, it says Mighty God. But hold on a second. This verse just said, "And his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Everlasting Father is not a name. Everlasting Father is a title or is a function. You are a father. Your title is a father, or your function, you operate as a father. That's not a name. Prince of Peace is not a name. It's a character. Wonderful is not a name. I know some people call their names wonderful, but wonderful, it's actually, it expresses something that is wonderful. Counselor is a function. You are counseling someone, you are a counselor. So how could this be a name? This is the confusion again that Hasatan is bringing. Hence I say, if you were to tell this to someone who is in the uttermost wilderness, desert, forest, somewhere, that has never heard of the word or the Bible, you will struggle to explain this to him. It doesn't make sense. It's conflicting. You are conflicting yourself. In fact, the word would be conflicting itself. And that's why the safety that we have is that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let's look at the consistencies with other parts of the word. Then we can be able to identify that this was a mistranslation or this was an error. How do you say that mighty God, that Yahusha is everlasting Father? The very same one that we say is the Son of God, and then we're saying that he's Father? That's confusion. How do you say that Jesus according to Isaiah chapter 9 verse 6, is the everlasting Father, or Yahusha is the everlasting Father. It is the confusion. So this is what we needed to bring to clarity, even as we talk about the comparison between the two, as to who is Aluah. Because the one who then is Aluah is the one who must be worshipped. And what we're going to be doing now, we're going to be looking at, as we're talking about Aluah who wants to be worshipped, we're going to continue with the same process of looking on the same table of the right hand side being what is true and what came about as a deception. If you read the book of Shamut, or Exodus chapter 7 verse 16, it says, "And you shall say to him, Yahuah the Aluah of the Hebrews has sent me to you, saying, let my people go so that they can worship me in the wilderness, or so that they can serve me in the wilderness. But see, until now you have not listened." So who must be worshipped? Yahuah, our Aluah, alone deserve to be worshipped. We worship Yahuah alone. We serve Yahuah alone. Yes, we love Yahusha. We honor Yahusha. We respect Yahusha. But the worship goes to the Father. The worship goes to the Father. Reverence goes to the Father. We respect Yahusha. We honor Yahusha. We thank Yahusha for his love and what he did for us. But we worship the only true Aluah, who is one. And that's even Yahusha himself, when he was here on earth, he said, I don't speak anything of myself except that which my Father has commanded me to speak. He says, I do as I see my Father do. I speak as I see my Father do. He says, let my Father be exalted and I diminish. He says, the Father is greater than I. They are not at the same level. They are not equal. Yahusha introduced us to the Father who is to be worshipped, and Yahusha himself worships the Father. Yahusha himself worships Yahuah. This must be corrected, because the enemy has made us detour or derail the worship from the person to whom it is due, which is the Father. The person to whom the worship is due, which is Yahuah. And Yahuah says, my people are now misled. My people are now deceived, even as to who they worship. And Hasatan, that's exactly his will, that nobody must worship Yahuah. No one must worship the Father, even if it's in the name of now worshiping or twisting the worship towards the Son. Yeah, Hasatan, who is the adversary, who is the one challenging Yahuah, is happy. Anything as long as it is not with Yahuah, as long as it's not with with the Father, that's he is happy when he does that. So let us be correct. I was even talking about this when we were writing songs and in the album for Alicia Psalms, and I said, there's very little song that talks about the Father. There's very little songs, few songs that talks about Yahuah. There's so much songs out there, not only about the Son, very few about Yahusha. A lot of the songs are about Jesus. A lot of the songs are about Jesus. But we're going to address that even as we continue with the teaching. Again, if we read Dabarym or Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 13, it says, fear Yahuah your Aluah and serve him and worship him and swear by his name. So the interesting thing, if we go back to the message that Yahuah gave to Moshe when he was sending him to Pharaoh to say, let my people go so they can worship me, so that they can spend time with me, so that they can abide in my word, so that they can have intimacy with me, so they can bond with me. Because worship is not just songs. We express worship in song, but not limited to song. We express worship in words. We express worship in what we do, in our actions, in our conduct. That's why it is used interchangeably as serve or worship. People have now limited to serving Yahuwah or to worship to just the kind of slow songs. No, that is a lie. He wanted us to himself, that we no longer serve the Egyptians in the house of bondage in Mitzrayim, but that we come out of the house of bondage, in the house of slavery, and that we serve him alone, Yahuah our Aluah. Yahuah again, chapter 4 verse 23, or John chapter 4 verse 23, it reads, "But the hour is coming," Yahusha says, "the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship" who? Shall worship the Father. It's Yahusha said it. He says the true worshippers shall worship the Father in Ruach and in truth. He didn't say that the true worshippers must worship me and the Father. He said worship the Father. How come so many songs of worship are to Jesus? It is Hasatan derailing us from the will of the Father, from the will of Yahuwah. Something that is a deception, something that looks good, that looks genuine. It looks good to worship the Son of Aluah. He died for us. Not only did he die for us, he is still sitting as we speak right now at the right hand of the Father, making intercessions for us as our high priest. He is our helper. Even as we are working in the reign and in the kingdom of Yahuwah, he is the leader that Yahuwah has appointed to be the captain of our salvation, even as he's leading us in this journey of serving him. He is the first fruit. We honor him. He's the one that brought us to the Father. He's the one that's bringing us to the Father. Even as the word tells us that the word tells us that Yahuwah was in Yahusha, reconciling the world unto himself. So it is Yahuwah who was doing the reconciliation, using Yahusha, reconciling us unto himself. Even now, he is the same Father, the same Yahuwah is in us, reconciling the world unto himself. That all honor and worship and adoration and esteem goes to the Father, even as Yahusha prayed so in Yahuah or John chapter 17. It really pains me when I see so many people say Jesus is God in light of this evidence that I've just explained right now. Why are there so many songs about Jesus as compared to the Father, who is supposed to be worshipped, who is to be worshipped, whom we're instructed even by Yahusha himself told us that we should worship the Father, that who is Aluah. Yahuwah is the only Aluah, not the Son. We are to honor the Son, but we are to honor the Son, but not worship him. Even as we see this in Proverbs chapter 30, verse 4. Now, if we look at the deception that comes about, we see that even Shaul warned us of this, who is now changed to Paul. In the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 3 to 4, it says, "Let no one deceive you in any way." Why did Shaul to say that? He knew that there will be so much deception. If we look at how the early emissaries or the early apostles, and when things started changing, because we know that the last emissary or the last apostle that died was Yahuah or John, which was around, I stand corrected, probably around 100 AD. But from the 2nd century, 3rd century up until now, the message has changed altogether. The way of worship has changed altogether. The names were changed. So many things were changed. But he is coming back. He's calling us back to, and is restoring us back, Yahuah, to himself. Yes, it's been 2,000 years of deception. It's been 2,000 years of lies. But while we are alive, and that's why Yahusha then said in Matthew or Matthew chapter 24, this message of the kingdom shall be proclaimed to all the world, to all the earth as a witness, and then the end will come. So this awakening, this alertness, this enlightenment that we now have, it is preparing the way of Yahusha, who can only come once the truth has been brought forth. And then people then have a choice whether they accept it or not. That nobody will have an excuse to say, I did not know. I did not know the Creator's name. I did not know the Son's name. I did not know of all these things of who we're supposed to be worshiping. I didn't know. This is why we are proclaiming this message right now. Hallelujah. Halal Yahuah. Halal Yahuah. Praise Yahuah. Shaul says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 3 to 4, let no one deceive you in any way, because the falling away is to come first. This falling away is what I'm referring to. Not just utterly backsliding, but backsliding from the truth, falling away from the truth, which is coming through deception of the enemy, which is coming through the adversary, which is coming through the imposter. And the man of lawlessness. Who is the man of lawlessness? It is Halal, who is called Lucifer, whose name is changed in the version that we speak about, which we're reading in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 28, that it says Lucifer. Actually, his name is Halal, because he was named that way by Yahuah. He is this man of lawlessness who is to make people say there is no need for us to abide with the law. The law has been done away with. If you say the law has been done away with, you're speaking lawlessness without the law, excluding the law, live outside of the law. That is Hasatan, that is speaking such lies, deceiving people of Yahuah. Deceiving the people of Aluah to say that Yahusha took our place. There is no need for us to obey the law. The law was nailed on the cross. I don't know which cross are you talking about. The curses associated with lawlessness were brought upon Yahusha, and we, by accepting him, then he gave us his blessings. We then are the blessed one, Baruch one, Sibusisiwe. That's why when we speak, we say we are blessed. We are Baruch Sibusisiwe, not cursed anymore. For he was cursed for us, or he took the curse upon himself on our behalf, or in our behalf. The 2 Thessalonians tells us that the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes. That's why I've been talking about this series. It talks about an adversary. An adversary is the one who opposes. Hasatan is an opposer. That's what it means. It's not a name. It's what he does. It's a noun. Opposes. And exalts himself above all that is called Aluah. We've read this in the book of Ezekiel, where he exalts himself above Yahuah, or above that which is called Yahuah. We read it in Ezekiel chapter 28. We read it in Isaiah or Yasharal chapter 14 verse 14, that says, I will exalt and be like the Most High. It is the very same Hasatan that Shaul is telling us and is warning us in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 verse 3 to 4. Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called Aluah and that which is worshipped. He is opposing that which is worshipped. Who is to be worshipped? The Father. And he's now derailing us to be worshipping who? The Son. and is now derailing us to be worshiping whom he calls Jesus, or whom the world translated as Jesus. His name is Yahushua. Correct name as it is being Yahushua is not to be worshipped. Worship is only reserved for the Father, for Yahuwah. But Hasatan comes, the man of lawlessness comes to deceive us, opposing and exalting himself above all that which is called Aluah and that which is worshipped, so that he sits as Yahuwah in the Mishkan of Yahuwah, showing himself that he is Yahuwah. The whole aim of all this confusion that is taking place is that Hasatan sits as Yahuwah. You think you're worshiping Yahuwah, but it's a deception, it's a masquerade, it's an imposter. You actually are worshiping Hasatan. You think it's in the Mishkan of Yahuwah, but in the presence, it's not Yahuwah. In this presence, he's actually showing himself as Yahuwah. He's not, for he's masquerading as Yahuwah, as the angel of light. That is why it is important that we be sober-minded, that we renew our minds, according to as Romans chapter 12 tells us, that our minds be transformed, that our hearts be transformed by the our minds be transformed by the renewal of our minds, our hearts be transformed by the renewal of our minds. How do we do that? It is by the truth, his word, which is truth. Hallelujah. Praise Yahuwah. Exalt Yahuwah. Let his name be esteemed. Halal Yahuwah. Revelations chapter 13 verse 15, it reads, and there was given to him to give a ruach to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause to be killed as many as would not worship the image of the beast. He has always, as we saw it in the book of Ezekiel, even we were told in the book of Revelation chapter 13 verse 15, that he caused people to be killed, as many as those who would not worship him, because he longs for being worshipped. He is in pursuit of being worshipped, and anyone who does not worship him or his image, he causes them to be killed. This is what we should know now, before the reign of Antichrist actually happens. Now, as we do this comparison, the last comparison that we'll be looking at in this teaching is how he masquerades himself, how he challenges Yahuwah, how Hasatan challenges Yahuwah, how he masquerades himself, how he becomes an imposter, that everything that Yahuwah does or is, he imitates. I think that's the right way right now to read it, is imitation. Let's read, we're looking at the right hand side of our table again. Shamut, or the book of Exodus chapter 13 verse 9, it reads, and it shall be as a sign to you on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes, that the Torah of Yahuwah is to be in your mouth. For with a strong hand Yahuwah has brought you out of Mitzrayim. So the word of Yahuwah, it is to be a sign. The Torah is to be a sign on our right hand, between our between our eyes, that refers to our forehead. Let's read the book of Dabarym, or Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 5. Dabarym, or Deuteronomy 6 verse 5, it reads, and you shall love Yahuah your Aluah with all your heart and with all your being, or with all your soul, and with all your might. So we look at the soul as our mind, as our being, as a symbol of our thoughts, that we shall, our thoughts, whether we are awake or asleep, our thoughts must be obsessed, or not even obsessed is a negative connotation, occupied, I think that's a better word, occupied. Our thoughts must be occupied by who Yahuwah is, by his goodness, by his love, his kindness, that we want to worship him, want to serve him. And it talks about that our right hand, we must love him with all our might, and our might is a reflection of our work, our might. All right. Revelations 14 verse 1, it reads, "And I looked and saw a lamb standing on Mount Tsiun, and with him 144,000 with his father's name written upon their foreheads." Yahuwah's name is to be written on our foreheads. And that's why some people, when I used to talk about the name of Yahuwah, they said, I've taken the whole issue of the name to extreme. Yahuwah was, the Father is just reflecting of his thing, is talking about his character. How is his character going to be written on our forehead? How? It's a name that is written, just like the 10 commandments were written on the table of stones. Letters, words are written, not a character. Yes, you reflect by your lifestyle a character, but when it talks about the writing, it refers to a name. What name then is to be on our forehead? And Revelation chapter 14 verse 1 tells us that of the 144,000, the Father's name will be written on their foreheads. The Father's name, and his name is Yahuwah. You better know it now and call on his name now. And Revelation chapter 22 verse 3 to 4, it actually tells us that the Father's name being written on the forehead is not limited only to the 144,000, but it also says, Revelation chapter 22 verse 3 to 4, "And no longer shall there be any curse, and the throne of Yahuwah and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him, and they shall see his face, and his name shall be on their foreheads." So don't even think, oh, I'm not part of the 144,000, so the Father's name is not going to be marked on. No. But even those that are not of the 144,000, then, because the word tells us in the book of Revelation chapter 22 that after the 144,000, I saw a multitude whose number I could not count. Yahukanon, otherwise now known as John, reflects about more people that approach the throne. And watch this. It says, "And the throne of Yahuwah and of the Lamb." So there are two thrones. Revelation chapter 14 verse, Revelation chapter 22, Revelation 22 verse 3 to 4, it says, "And no longer shall there be any curse." This is talking about the new heaven and the new earth. "And the throne of Yahuwah and the throne of the Lamb shall be in it." There are two thrones. There are two seats. One is sitting and another one is sitting on the right hand. So the two are not one. They are separate. One is the Father, another one is the Son. The Son worships the Father. Can we please correct this? Let's go back to the word. Now, in comparison then, as we close this imitation, Satan is doing exact imitation of what Yahuwah is doing. Why? Because he opposes that which is of Yahuwah. 2 Thessalonians tells us, chapter 3, he opposes that which is of Yahuwah. He exalts himself above all that is called of Aluah, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as Yahuwah in the Mishkan of Yahuwah, showing himself that he is Yahuwah. Revelation chapter 13 verse 16 to 17, it says, "And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark." Where is this mark that Satan is giving the people? Where is this mark that the beast is giving the people? On the right hand. Just as we read Exodus 13 verse 9, Deuteronomy 6 verse 5, talking about the sign being on the right hand. The imitator is choosing. If we were to give the people the mark on the left hand, we will know that it is not Yahuwah. We would know that it is not of Aluah. But he chooses that which is of Yahuwah exactly because he opposes that which is of Yahuwah. Exalts himself as of Yahuwah. He also puts the mark of the people on the right hand. Where else did he put this mark? Upon their foreheads. Wow, really? When there could have been a mark in any other form of one's body, he chooses that which Yahuah puts his name, where Revelation chapter 14 verse 1 and Revelation chapter 22 verse 3 to 4 told us that the Father's name is written on their forehead. Satan's mark, the mark of the beast, is also on the forehead. And that no one should be able to buy or sell except that has the mark or the name of the beast and the number of his name. So the mark, the name of the beast, and the number of his name, that is how Satan imitates Yahuah. We will then be continuing with this teaching in seeing how he challenges Yahuah. Shalom.